Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Monday afternoon. And again, another eventful weekend of basketball. So there is a lot to talk about. So the first segment is obviously going to be about Game 2 between the Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. The game went completely the opposite of what I thought it was going to happen. I thought the Mavericks were going to end up winning this game, and they had several opportunities, and this was probably like their best chances of winning that game, but ultimately it just didn't work. So that we're going to talk about that. Then in the second segment, we are going to talk a little bit about the USA Olympics roster for the women's because it was just released recently. And there is a lot of controversy surrounding that list because Caitlin Clark isn't on it, which is, my biggest complaint. So I'll talk a little bit about that in the second segment. Then in the third segment, we are going to be talking about Darvin Ham. He recently just got a new coaching position with the Bucks, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as Dan Hurley's decision on what he's going to do between either choosing UConn or the Lakers. Then in the fourth segment, we are going to talk about whether Shaq was the best player on the Lakers back in the 2000s or if he was not. Now, the reason why I'm going to talk about that in the fourth segment is because Shaq said literally live on TV when he was talking to Jaylen Brown that he wasn't the best player on any of his championship teams, and I'm here to give my opinions on that. So we also have a special fifth segment, so be sure to stay tuned at the end of the first few segments for that. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcspodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcspodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and getting into the first segment of the show, which is going to be about the Celtics dominating the Dallas Mavericks again at home. This was their second home win in the series, and it was completely against what I thought was going to happen in the episode that I previously uploaded, where I thought the Dallas Mavericks were going to end up winning this game due to the fact that the Boston Celtics, they have a history of struggling in Game 2 of this postseason, so I just figured that it was going to be just another repeat of what happened before, but that is not the case whatsoever. It was the exact same story, honestly. Like, the same story that we've seen with the Celtics from every team in the postseason, and the same story that we see from the Celtics against the Mavericks. They just completely blew them out of the water from start to finish, and the tab's not opening for some reason. Okay, there we go. So, the Celtics, they ended up winning 107-89, and part of this win, it wasn't pretty. Like, the Celtics, they did not have their best game in terms of shooting the ball or in terms of scoring, especially from a lot of their star players. But still, despite that, they were able to come out with a blowout win, winning by almost 20 points, and really, like, just putting the Mavericks on thin ice going into this series. And I mentioned struggling with shooting. Jason Tatum, he's not going to be on this, Jason Tatum is not going to be on, this list right here of the two players that deserve to be, or the three players that deserve to be player of the game. Now, the reason why he's not on there, he ended the game with, 18 points, 12 assists, and 9 rebounds. These are very good box score numbers, yes. But when you look at his shooting, he shot 6 for 22 from the field and 1 for 7 from 3. That is some horrible shooting. And the fact that the Celtics were able to still win by double digits just shows how much better of a team they really are compared to the Dallas Mavericks. So Jaylen Brown, he ended this game with 20. He actually ended with 21 points. That's my bad. I don't know why the the points and the rebounds are slightly off by one. He ended with 21 points and he ended with seven rebounds. I don't know why are these stats completely wrong. I have no idea why they're wrong. I fixed them before. I apologize for that, but he ended the game with 21 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds. So, again, like just a very dominant performance coming in from Jaylen Brown. Again, those numbers, they're just wrong. I have no idea what happened. I have no idea why those are the numbers being put on there, but we'll scratch that. These numbers are right, however. I don't understand. I don't know what happened. 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists from Jrue Holiday. This was a phenomenal performance, and he's had the reputation of being rather shaky in the postseason. But so far, I mean, that hasn't really happened in this postseason. He's been very, very consistent. And like these numbers, I mean, they desperately needed these numbers. And Jrue Holiday, he seems to always have, that one game where it's like you desperately need someone to perform, he's going to be there. It's always that one game. I don't know why, but he's been very good in this postseason. And obviously Luka Doncic, by far the best player throughout the entirety of the postseason. 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. He's the first player in NBA history to ever lead the playoffs in points, rebounds, assists, steals, field goals made, three-point makes, and free throw makes. And again, the first player to ever do that in the history of basketball. Not even LeBron was able to lead the entire playoffs in every single statistical category like that. Most likely because, the free throw makes. He wasn't really known as a good free throw shooter. And speaking of free throw shooting, that was arguably the biggest reason as to why the Dallas Mavericks ended up losing by this many points. Like, I mean, they didn't almost lose by 20, by the way. My math is just completely off. But they missed 7 free throws in this game, and they were down by 7 points. So if they would have made a couple more free throws, they would have won the game. But, this is why we played. Actually, wait, no. They missed 8 free throws. So if they would have made all of their free throws, they would have ended up coming out in this game with a win. So that's part of the reason why the Mavs ended up losing this. Because there's really no reason why the Mavs should have lost with how badly the Celtics were shooting. Derek White, 6 for 15 from the field, 4 of 10 from 3. Jaylen Brown, he was a little bit consistent, but he wasn't all that. 8 for 15, that's pretty consistent. But it's the 3-point percentage, 1 for 5 from 3. That's just really bad. And obviously Jason Tatum, he knows he shot bad. Everyone knows he shot bad. All of Twitter knows he shot bad. And Sam Hauser, 0 for 5 from the field. And the only shot that Picard even made in the entire game was a half-court bomb. So this was a really, really bad shooting night from the Celtics. But the Mavericks, they shot even worse from the 3, they didn't shoot worse from the field, but they shot even worse from 3. 6 for 26 from the 3-point line. Only 2 other players on the Dallas Mavericks hit a 3 that game. They were Dante Exum and PJ Washington. Kyrie didn't hit a 3 again in this game, and he ended the game with more points. Actually, no, with more shot attempts than points. Again, if you're the Mavericks, this cannot happen with Kyrie. Like, you absolutely need Kyrie scoring, and they're just not getting that from him. So, free throw shooting, Kyrie Irving, and teammates just not doing enough. Those are the biggest reasons as to why the Mavericks ended up losing this game, because I don't really know how you can look at what Luka's doing. I mean, 32, 11, and 11. And think, oh, he's the reason why he lost. Like, shoo. Excuse me, but I don't know how you can look at his numbers and think, oh, he's the problem, because you just can't. Like, there's just no way that's even like conceivable in in this series. So that's basically all I have for this first segment. And again, like these Mavericks, if they really wanna end up winning this series, they are going to have to play a lot better. Kyrie's going to have to play a lot better. He's actually going to have to drop 20 points. Have one of those vintage Kyrie games, because he still hasn't had that yet in against the Boston Celtics. So now we will go ahead and go into the next segment, where I talk about Team USA with women's basketball, and how who Miss Caitlin Clark is not on the roster. So I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And tooth is still itching. But in this second segment, we are going to be looking at the Team USA women's basketball roster and criticizing them, because why is there no Caitlin Clark on the roster? But before I begin, I like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and look at the Team USA roster. Actually, I'm going to see if I can pull up the roster for you guys right here. Just give me 1 second. And yep, I totally can. There we go. So here are the athletes. We have Ariel Atkins, Shakira Austin, Aliyah Boston, Boston, Chelsea Gray, Brittany Griner. I'm very surprised to see her on the roster, given how, her backstory and all the things that she's been doing with Russia and things of that nature. Ryan Howard, Sabrina Ionescu definitely deserves to be on the roster. Kelsey Plume. Kelsey Plume. And if you guys are wondering why I'm saying Kelsey Plume like that, it's because a tight end in football, Darren Waller, if you guys know, I'm a Giants fan. He ended up retiring, and kind of might be because of her, might not be because of her. I'm not going to get to dive deep into that, but yeah, Kelsey Plume, definitely a character. And Joelle Lloyd is I don't know. I honestly don't know who that is. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Brenna Stewart, she's fantastic. Diana Taurasi, also fantastic. Aja Wilson, also a great player. Jackie Young, I don't know who that is. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything with you guys when I don't know who some of these athletes are, because, women's basketball, it's only really popular for, you guessed it, Caitlin. Why isn't Caitlin Clark on this roster? I don't understand why the WNBA and the rest of its players, they just hate on her. I don't understand why. They have this vendetta against her. Like, they're so jealous of the fact that this woman is this good. And the reason why their sport is now getting attention is because of her. They feel bad. I'm sorry to say it. It seems like this is what's happening. I know, what's her face? I know Diana, was on a podcast saying that it's not going to be easy in the WNBA, just already hating on Caitlyn. I know she was on there too, doing, on that podcast as well. This is, like, it's without a doubt. You guys remember the, let me see if I could just expand this a little bit so that way you guys can get a better view. But you guys remember the whole debacle between any of like my old basketball fans that are like that remember the Michael Jordan era. If you guys remember the when what's it called? When Isaiah Thomas, he was on he met the criteria to be selected for Team USA, but he wasn't. This is basically the exact same thing that's going on right now with Caitlyn and not being on Team USA. For whatever reason, I don't understand why anyone would think not to add her onto the team unless there's already going to be chemistry problems with her amongst certain players like her and everybody else on the roster that apparently just doesn't like her for whatever reason. I mean, what's really crazy to me is the fact that they aren't like, they are straight it's really like, it's apparent just how much they don't like her. And they don't even give her any kind of respect for bringing the attention to this league. Like, there wasn't going to be any attention brought to the WNBA unless somebody like her came in and shattered that gender barrier, because she broke a record that not even men's players have been able to break since 1970, whatever the heck it was. Like a record that was set before the president of sports that we have right now. And that, with that being shattered, that demands respect, and the rest of the league just isn't giving it to her, and I don't like it. She's the Fever and against the Mystics, the two worst teams in the WNBA right now. They had more people in attendance, 20,333, excuse me, I misspoke, than the NBA Finals Game 1 between the Mavericks and the Celtics, which had 19,000 people in attendance. So the WNBA game had over 1,100 more people in attendance than an NBA Finals game. And it's all because of her. She's also the fastest player in WNBA history to record 200 points and 50 assists. Not a single rookie has done that before. And let me see, what other things has she broken as a rookie? Because there's several more. I just need to find them. There's so many of them. She's also became the first rookie to have a 35-5-3-3 game. And again, like, the first rookie to ever do that. No rookie has done that in the history of the WNBA until she stepped foot on the court. And what makes this even crazier is how every single Team USA roster had at least one rookie in the lineup. But now there isn't. And it's all because Caitlyn is not on the roster and everybody else on the team just doesn't like her. I don't understand. Yes, we get it. The rest of you guys can ball. The rest of the team is formidable, and this is one of the most, if not the most dominating Team USA women's basketball roster that the world has ever seen. But it could be so much better adding Caitlyn to the roster. And there's people that are saying, like, oh, she hasn't really adjusted yet. She's only ranked top 6 in rookies, and she isn't even top 2. And the reason why she's not top 2 is because her team is bad. And she's put in literally the worst situation possible, forced to try and dribble through triple team, double teams, because the rest of the team doesn't do anything. I'm sorry to say, but the rest of the team just doesn't help her in any kind of way that benefits to them winning, and it is very sad that she's not on the roster. And I think it's capital punishment, because how could you not have somebody like her on a Team USA roster. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you broke the record for points ever in NCAA history compared to between men and women. That is never going to be broken in the history of basketball, let alone by a man. And please, like, seriously, she's the reason why women's basketball is so popular. It shouldn't like irk these women, these female players like it does. If unless you're on like unless you're on her team and it's like you're getting babied like that and she's getting catered. It's a very big difference. Like, if you're a rookie, I see so many NBA athletes, they give these rookies every sort of praise in the world. It's not all of them, but some of them, they will give them a lot of praise. But for the WNBA, not a single person aside from the people on her team has seemed to give her praise, and I don't understand why. But that's all I have for this second segment, and that's it for my rant, because let's be real, she should be on that roster. Like, you can get rid of, let's see, I'm gonna round off a bunch of people you can get rid of. You could get rid of Chelsea Gray, you could get rid of Atkins, you can get rid of Lloyd, you can't get rid of Ionescu, that I 100% will agree, you can't do that. You can get rid of Jackie Young, you can't get rid of Aja Wilson, definitely cannot. You can get rid of Ryan Howard. It does, either one of those guards you can get rid of, and you will be fine. Even Kelsey Plume, like, oh my gosh, you could totally get rid of Kelsey Plume and replace her with Caitlin Clark. Obviously, Kelsey Plume is a really good basketball player, but I'm just making a joke when I say that, because Giants fan really hurt here. I mean, ugh. But aside from that, she should be on the roster. No question about it, she should be on the roster. And with that, we are out of time for this second segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the third segment, where I'm going to talk about Darvin Ham yet again, because we have some news surrounding Darvin Ham and his future, and he has a future, and it's with a completely new team, and it's with one of my favorite head coaches. You guys are going to know exactly who it is, and I will be right back after this short break to talk a little bit about that, so stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC basketball podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I apologize for that longer than usual wait. Just needed to get a drink because the sun is still beaming on my head. And in this third segment, we are going to talk about two different coaches, and they both have ties with the Lakers. So the first that we're going to knock right out of the park is Darvin Ham. Toothache is happening again. That hurts. But Darvin Ham, obviously, like as I mentioned before, he was recently fired as head coach of the Lakers last month, and he has now gotten one of his old jobs back as an assistant head coach to the Milwaukee Bucks. So now he is going to be Doc Rivers' assistant, as Woj recently just reported this at 12:11 p.m., so just an hour ago, essentially. And let's see. Ham has drawn interest from several NBA teams for assistant coach jobs, but he opted for the familiar spot and a chance to contend in the Eastern Conference. So, not really much that needs to be said about this move. I mean, he previously held that position, and it was probably the only position that he was going to get ever since his little tenure with the Lakers. And what really makes this almost like just the worst situation I could think of is the fact that Doc is your head coach. Like, I don't know what could be a worse duo of coaching lineups and coaching staffs ever. I'm sorry to say this, but I really think that this coaching staff is horrendous. Doc Rivers, the only good thing about Doc Rivers being a coach is that you have a coach that has championship experience. Aside from that, horrible. I do not like this move at all from the Bucks. I think it is bad. I think they should get rid of Doc. I've been screaming from the mountaintops since they got Doc Rivers in the beginning of the season that they don't need him and they need to get rid of him. I've said it so many times, and this is no different, and it's not going to be any different now that Darvin Ham is on the roster. Get rid of Doc. That is going to be what I have to say about the Bucks and their entire situation, because quite frankly, I do not think the Bucks are going to go anywhere when they have Doc Rivers as the head coach. It doesn't matter who they have on their team. It doesn't matter how many stars they have. It doesn't matter how many free agents they grab, how many great players they can snag. It does not matter. Doc is your coach, and Doc is going to mess things up. It happens all the time. Not to mention, having Darvin Ham as your assistant isn't going to make things any better whatsoever. You have two coaches that can't adjust their playbooks, and you have two coaches that can't adjust on the fly. That is not a good combination. That is very bad, and it's just bad. I'm sorry, this is not a good move. I don't really appreciate this move whatsoever, and that's all that really needs to be said about this assistant head coaching move coming in from Darvin Ham. So now we can move on and we can go ahead to the other coach about for the Lakers. Well, not really for the Lakers, but the other coach that is going to have, a Laker background in Dan Hurley. So as I talked about in the previous podcast, and on that previous podcast, we were surprised with the announcement that Hurley is going to be pursued by the Lakers in this, since their head coaching spot is now vacant. And everyone was sort of taken aback by this head coaching decision, because everybody sort of thought that JJ Redick was going to be the main target and he was going to be the main head coach for this team, for this contending team. But that ended up not being the case, and what surprised really everyone was the fact that the Lakers are going to pursue Dan Hurley, and we have new information on when he's going to make his decision. He plans on making his decision today, actually. So it's like literally Monday he plans on making his decision, which, is like it's up in the air because it's like I'm expecting the decision to come out like right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if it just comes out a little bit later. I'm still refreshing on Twitter, just waiting and waiting until I get the alert from Woj saying, "Whoops! Now it looks like he has been confirmed to be on the Lakers." But so far that hasn't happened yet, and I'm not entirely sure. Um, what time that'll happen? Watch it happen at like 11:59 at night, right before 12 right before 12 p.m. strikes, or 12 a.m. strikes, excuse me. But yeah, like that's just, it's really like we'll have to see when this information is going to be dropped. I'll probably do a short when the information finally does come out and Dan Hurley finally does become the Lakers head coach. It's Let me know what you guys think of the move. If you guys think that this was a better option than grabbing JJ Redick. Do you guys think that the Lakers would be just as fine if they did get JJ? And do you agree with Dan Hurley's decision if he were to join? Do you agree with it? Do you want him to join the Lakers and, possibly give them a good chance and be a long-term coach for that team? Or would you rather see him make history in the NCAA and win another title with the UConn Huskies? Because that is really the main conflict right here. The main conflict is, what will Dan Hurley do with his coaching? Like, how does he want to be remembered? Does he want to be remembered as the only coach that three-peated? Or does he want to be remembered as a head coach for the Lakers? It's one of those two, and depending on how each of those scenarios play out will impact his legacy. So, it's a lot of things to weigh in, like where do we think, because let's be real, if you were to go back to UConn, the expectation is to win a championship. So there might be more pressure on him being at UConn than there will be pressure with him in LA. And, a lot of people, they say, like, the pressure of LA, it really gets to people. But maybe UConn's pressure is a little bit more than LA's pressure, because right now, LA, I don't really think anyone expects a title from LA. And I also do not think that anyone really expects much from LeBron in any sense now in the NBA. And with UConn, everybody is expecting championship. Like, everybody is going to be expecting, another Final Four appearance or another deep playoff run and championship, which is what he's done back-to-back years. And, since he's done it back-to-back, it's expected that he's going to do it back-to-back-to-back. And, be cemented as the only head coach, and to do that. And, that's a lot of pressure. Might be a little bit more pressure than being the head coach for the Lakers. So we'll have to see if, he's willing to do that, whether it be for 1 year, whether it be for 2 years. It all depends. But that's basically all for the third segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where we talk about Shaq and his finals runs, because he had something interesting to say about, him in the finals. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that right after the short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, it's not going to be a particularly long segment, and neither is the fifth segment, now that I think about it. Probably going to be rather short because we're simply only going to debate on who the best player was on each of the teams. So, this segment 4 is going to be about whether or not Shaq was the best player on the Lakers when he went on his tenure, or whether he was the best player on any of his championship teams. So, when we think of Shaq, we think of dominance, right? Like, he's arguably, the dominant player on any kind of team. But does that necessarily mean that he is the best? Does that mean that he has a repertoire of moves that he can use? Now, dominance, obviously, it's like you can do, at least the way I define dominance, you can do a certain move that's going to get you where you need every single time. Like, whether it be in wrestling, whether it be in football, whether it be in basketball, you have one move that gets somebody almost every single time, and there's nothing that they can do to stop it. Now, that is dominance. Now, does that mean that you are the best player? If you are so dominant and you can get whatever you want whenever you want, does that make you the best player? In my opinion, there needs to be a lot more, context into that. What is it that they do? What is it that they're producing? What is it that they gain out of doing this as many times as they do it? And what is it that is preventing them from being considered the best, if not the most dominant? So with Shaq and his championships and, his runs in the finals, the only other running mates the only other, players that could be argued that were better on the Lakers or on the Miami Heat when he won his championships were D. Wade and Kobe Bryant. Now, for Dwayne Wade, a lot of people genuinely, everyone knows that, Dwayne Wade played a lot better than Shaq in that finals. Dwayne Wade won the finals MVP in 2006 when they were on the Miami Heat. He was the best player on the Miami Heat, and he had the finals MVP to prove it, Dwayne Wade. But for the Lakers, on the other hand, the only other argument was Kobe. And Kobe did not win a single finals MVP when Shaq was on the Lakers. And Shaq saying that, I wasn't the best player on any of my championship runs, I feel it's a little disrespectful to himself, because it's like, what? And, people, they think that, Kobe was the better, some people think Kobe was the better player in the series. I'm surprised that, Shaq said that live on TV, because I genuinely think that's just untrue. Like, as much of a Kobe fan as I am, I do not think that Shaq wasn't the best player on that team. Like, I think that, in terms of, like, Shaq was clear-cut the best player and the most valuable player on the Lakers during that time. But I'm not going to say that Kobe didn't do much to help the team either. I feel like they were both responsible for winning, and they both carried a huge, either offensive load or defensive load for the team, and they did it consistently. They did it great, and they ended up getting a three-peat. So I'm not going to deny Kobe's greatness. I'm obviously not going to deny Kobe's greatness, but saying that he was the best player in when he was playing with Shaq, I just think it's not true, especially when Kobe doesn't have the finals MVPs to prove it, and Shaq is the one talking with those finals MVPs that Kobe would need to prove it. Because I understand, Shaq's offensive, and his bag, I guess if you want to call it that, and his repertoire isn't all that impressive. He only has one move, and that's really backing people down and using his size to his advantage. But that's really all you need, and that's all that was needed in order to win. And, if you're doing what you need to do in order to win, there's nothing more that needs to be done. Like, there's nothing more that you got to do. And there's nothing more that Shaq really needed to do, because he was scoring on everybody regardless. So like, obviously, Kobe was there to help with the scoring, but Shaq was really the one that was putting the ball in the basket. And honestly, Kobe is probably the biggest argument as to why that Lakers team doesn't have more than 3 rings. Like, in 2004, when the Lakers, they made it to the finals again and they went up against the Pistons. The Pistons ended up beating that Lakers team, and that Pistons team is the only team in NBA history that does not have a player in the top 75 on that roster, and they won a championship with that roster. Now, the Lakers, that team, it was a failed super team, obviously, and the biggest problem on that team and the biggest reason why they lost was Kobe Bryant. Kobe shot them out of the entire series. He was shooting the ball way too much. He was trying to win the Finals MVP, is essentially what he was doing. And doing that ended up hurting the team. He was taking more shots than Shaq. He was also missing way more shots than Shaq. And, his shot selection was bad. His field goal shooting was bad. Everything about Kobe wasn't good in that series whatsoever. And he was arguably the biggest reason as to why they didn't win more rings. And so saying that Shaq wasn't the best player on any of his teams, I don't think that's true whatsoever. And I think he's just saying that out of respect. So I just wanted to bring that to attention because there is a similar conundrum in this final series as well between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And that's going to be what the 5th segment is going to be about, talking about who is the best player on the team between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So I will be right back. Excuse me. I'll be right back after the short break to give my opinions on that. So be sure to stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in to the 5th segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this 5th segment, we are going to be discussing who is the best player in the finals right now between the Celtics. So it's obviously between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because I recently looked seeing that, okay, that's definitely not doing what I want it to do. That's always great. Hold on just one second. Let me just fix this. Nope, that didn't work. There we go, that's better. So that way you guys can take a better look at, the stats and the numbers that are present on your screen. I'm trying to make this, this image a little bit more visible for you guys, but I'm just not having the best time. So that says assists, and assists per game, and there you go. There's your graphic right there. Assists per game, rebounds per game, and points per game. They're kind of mid. Like, I really gotta say, they're kind of, for Jason Tatum standards at least, they are exceptionally mid. This stat line right here mid-tier, and you can see that I'm moving it a little bit, but compared to what we're used to seeing out of Jason Tatum, this is by far a very piss poor, that's a very good word, performance coming in from him. Now, all around, it's great. Like, all around, I mean, 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. Those are all around great numbers, just looking at the box, like, and the individual stats. It's just the efficiency that I'm looking at that's really a problem. I mean, 17 points on 31% efficiency is horrible. And 28% shooting from the 3 is also horrible. Because it's like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? Like, literally, what are we doing here? And we want to... This is actually going to frustrate a lot of people when I say this, and this is really, like, going to ruffle some people's feathers, but these numbers are very, very similar to LeBron's 2011 final stats. I'm just going to throw them out there. It's really, really similar. I mean, 17 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. They're pretty close to 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. And LeBron played 4 more games than Jason Tatum currently right now. So, this is, it's looking to be like it's looking to be like it could be pretty, pretty bad. Oh, what is going on? Okay, there we go. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, it could look like this is going to be a really bad series coming in for Tatum. But in my personal opinion, like the numbers, they look strikingly similar. I mean, with LeBron's numbers and Jason Tatum's numbers, they look very similar. I mean, 17 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. I mean, he benefited greatly from the last game where, the what's it called? The assist numbers coming from Jason Tatum, they were very good and very, they were there without a doubt. But it's just like this, the rest of a performance as a whole is just, it's not it, in my personal opinion. I'm just adjusting the image a little bit slightly so that way you guys can get a little bit of a better view and, seeing just, there we go. That's much better. That's a lot better to see. Isn't that right? There we go. So we have these numbers coming in from Jason Tatum, and in my opinion, they are not Finals MVP worthy, which is very surprising because when you look at the Finals MVP polls and the possibilities of the stats and things like that, like to who's going to win the Finals MVP, it shows that Jason Tatum has the best chances, which again is very it's very weird for me. Like, it's very weird to see that. Like, how is 17 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists? I get it, like, filling up the box scores, that's really good. But in terms of efficiency, he hasn't really contributed much to the offense as I would expect from Jason Tatum, because he was known to being that scorer, and the fact that he just isn't doing that scoring is a little odd to me. And yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers right here, and really it was, I mean, LeBron, he had a good game 1, he had a pretty good game 2, but it was that game 4 where he really, really messed up, and in every other game as well. But it was a very lackluster performance coming in from LeBron, and his shooting was actually a lot better than the shooting that Jason Tatum is putting up right now. I mean, 47% from the field and 32% from 3 for LeBron. But yeah, they're really similar. I'm just pointing that out. Those numbers, they are very, very similar. But then the question is, who's going to be the Finals MVP if it's not Jason Tatum? Well, this guy right here, Jaylen Brown. He's been playing phenomenally in the playoffs and in the finals. And in fact, both of the times when the Celtics made it to the finals, Jaylen Brown was their best player in the finals. I mean, 21 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. Obviously, these aren't the same, stat stuffing numbers that Jason Tatum is able to get, which, it definitely helps. But what really is striking for me is the steals per game. If you look up at the top right, you can see that his steals per game is at 3. He's averaging 3 steals per game, which means that he's creating 3 more possessions for his team. And not to mention his field goal percentage. He's making the most out of the possessions that he has with the ball. 55% from the field. It means you are making, like, at least 2 out of your 3 shots. Like, obviously, that is not 55% at all. But the way I'm thinking it, when I look at 55%, that means that you're making basically you're making 2 shots and then you're making every other shot. And that's not bad. That's not bad at all. That is incredibly valuable for this team. And the way that this team is playing as a whole, it's almost like the 2014 San Antonio Spurs. Yes, the 2014 San Antonio Spurs, 2015, whatever you want to call it, the 2014 Spurs when they won that championship against the Miami Heat. You could flip a coin on either Tim Duncan, Kawhi, Tony, or Manu Ginobili, and either one of those guys had decent numbers to become the Finals MVP. Similar to in this series where you have several other players that are averaging good enough numbers to be considered the Finals MVP. I mean, recently you could make the argument that Kristaps could be a Finals MVP with his final stats that he's averaging right now. I'm just pulling up the final stats that he's averaging here, and let me see. I'm trying to find his game log real quick. Here we go. And in his game log in Dallas, when he's against Dallas, he's shooting 60% from the field, 28% from 3, which isn't that good, 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks. So it's really the blocks, the rebounds, and the points that are going to be an argument for Kristaps. And there's also another player that could be considered a Finals MVP is Drew Holiday, based off of that recent performance that he had from, he ended up let me see if I can pull up the game right over here. That's Luka's stats. Here we go. Drew Holiday. He ended the game with 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. And obviously, he wasn't a Finals MVP when he was on the Bucks, but it's not like his numbers here, it's not like they're bad. I don't have them up, but he's averaging 19 points, 4 assists, 9.5 rebounds, 1 steal, and let me see, 0.5 blocks, along with 65% from the field and 44% from 3. If he can keep this average up, and if he can keep doing what he's been doing in these games, I think it's going to be very difficult to argue that about him being a Finals MVP. Like, I mean, his numbers are definitely there, but chances are that they're going to go with the person that has the more star power as opposed to the person that is actually, hooping, if that makes sense. And it's like these numbers that he's averaging and the numbers that he's averaging in the playoffs, they're really, really good, and they could possibly infuriate a lot of fans. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Jaylen Brown wins this, if Jason Tatum wins this, or even if Kristaps wins it or Drew Holiday wins it. I mean, this team, a very formidable team, and they play their best at every single position. And let me just see. I'm curious on Derek White to see if he has a case of being the Finals MVP. And no, I don't think he does with his numbers. I think his numbers are very good coming in from whatever option you consider Derek White on that team. But they've been producing really well. But who is the best player on the Celtics? We cannot tell. I cannot tell. I definitely cannot tell in this series. I believe it's Jaylen Brown. He's definitely contributed a lot more. But there's also the argument that Drew Holiday might be the best player in this specific series. Now, for the Celtics as a whole, could be Jaylen Brown if Jaylen Brown, capitalizes on this final series. But aside from that, really no other argument for Jason Tatum. I mean, with Jason Tatum being the best player, those numbers, they are not the best numbers whatsoever. So I really think it's Jaylen Brown. And then, granted, the series, it could take a turn. We might end up seeing, Jason Tatum produce a lot better offensively, or we might see Jaylen Brown decrease offensively, and we might see somebody else play better, but who knows? So that's basically all I have for this final segment. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Who do you guys think is the best player on the Boston Celtics? But I think it's Jaylen Brown for now. But that's basically all I have. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show. It makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all I have for you guys today on this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit.